Canola planting's going on across Oklahoma, and Josh, you guys are getting the last seeds into the ground for OSU, right?
Yes, we're kind of on that home stretch, kind of getting towards the end, and it's good because we're getting right there. You know, our window typically for canola planting is the 10th of September through the 10th of October. A little flexibility on that back end, but pretty much we need to have most of our seeds in by the 10th of October. So, you know, kind of right now we're at that back end, and so we're trying to do as much as we can right now.
And it's kind of nice. We actually have some soil moisture to help the seed grow in the beginning.
It's about as perfect as you can get. We do have rain on the way. So I do believe most of the state of Oklahoma is running through the night, both getting wheat and canola in, but canola is going to be the most you know, critical because we are kind of at that back end.
Well, and being at that back end, there's not really the margin of error when it does come to planting. What's some of the things that producers need to be sure that they get right whenever they plant?
Yeah, because we don't have that opportunity to replant. We don't have those, you know, if we get spotty areas of the field, we can go back in and just fill those in, you know, because we are kind of at that back end. What we need to be doing now is making sure we're getting the seed in the ground, we're getting the seed germinated and up and going. And so a couple of the things we just need to make sure we're doing is planting correctly. That way we're getting really good seed soil contact. We are about a day off of a rain, and so it's one of those things. It's not planting too deep because you can pretty much wash the seed out. You can't plant too shallow because then you run into other difficulties. But it's getting that seed right in at the right place. Getting, if you we've seen some benefit from some pre-plant fertilizer in row, and so if you're doing that, making sure you're not going too high or too low, you know, and like I said, we're kind of at that back end, so everything we can do kind of really helps.
And of course, a lot of producers use a drill like this to actually plant the seeds, but there's some differences in settings from wheat to canola, right?
Yeah, there's some nuances with that, and this is kind of where we run into some issues, especially with some first-time canola growers, is that we are putting out a lot less seed. Most of the time, instead of 65, 80 pounds of seed on wheat, we're putting out 2 to 4 pounds. And so it's making sure that we're not putting out too much, not putting out too little, and really the settings that we do here really can set us off on a good foot for the rest of the season.
So let's go through it real quick and just kind of show us where producers need to be watching whenever they do make the adjustments to the planter.
Well, I mean, Dave, the first thing that you're going to need to do is spend a lot of time kind of right where we are right now. Calibrating the drill is ultimately very challenging with canola. With wheat, or sorry, with the drill, what we actually have is we'll have the canola or any of the seed get pushed from the seed box down through these little rotating mechanisms, which then go down into our planting unit.
Right.
For wheat, we can have those open because we're putting a lot of pounds of wheat. For canola, these have to be really closed. And for a lot of growers that have older box drills or anything along those lines, oftentimes they have to actually get modifiers to those things to actually allow that to close small enough to get those 3 and 4 pounds while still making sure that we're putting any seed out at all. So making sure that we sit out here and actually calibrate is a really good thing. So when we go through and we calibrate, what we need to know is just a couple things. If you're on a box drill like we have here, the radius of your tire, we need to know how many rotations we're going to do to theoretically plant 100 feet, 200 feet, 500 feet, what have you want to do. And then essentially all we're going to do is catch seed from these seed units, and then we'll weigh it up, determine how much you're actually putting out on a per acre basis, and like I said, it's adjusting a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit here, and so it's a lot of time is spent on a gravel road, you know, actually calibrating that drill, because that's ultimately where a majority of our stuff goes. So a couple of the other things, and it really is just going to depend on what kind of setup you have here. If we're working in no-till and you have coulters out front or trash cleaners out front, we want to make sure they're doing what they're meant to be doing. If we're coulters, We want to cut through that wheat residue, cut through that sorghum, that corn residue, and actually get a good planing surface ahead. If we're actually working on trash whippers or trash cleaners, those aren't discs, so we're not going to till with those. We just want to move the residue out of the way. That way we have a nice clean surface to plant with. A lot of our growers are planting with these double disc openers. That's kind of what we use a majority of our planters. We do have some shoe or those shovel base openers, which those work just fine. They have a little bit of modification on them. But the big thing is on these double discs, especially if that's what you're doing, is they need to touch. A lot of guys that have old drills that maybe they're bringing out of the weeds or something like that, they've worn, and so they don't touch. And so if that happens, what we're going to do is we push the seed to the side. We don't put it down in that seed furrow. We don't get good seed soil contact, and we'll never see canola come out. And so that's one really critical thing. The best thing to do is your manufacturer of your drill is going to tell you exactly how much to do. Just take 2 business cards or 2 playing cards and slide them into where you can't go anymore, and then you'll be able to measure that, and it should be in your planter book how far that distance should be, and that's going to be really critical. The other thing is these back end, you know, our seed firmers or our press wheels. If we have something really good, you know, and all of our press wheels, there's about 20 different types of press wheels that you can have. They all do very well in certain situations. Not all of them do well in no-till, but those no-till ones might not do very well when you're in conventional till. So make sure these are firming, but what we don't want to do is just press it and get these big seed trenches, because if we do have a rain like we're scheduled to get, and you plant it at a 1/2 inch, it might be 1.5 inches by the time you get to it. And so there's a lot of things that go onto the drill. On canola, we normally plant on a per pound basis because we are putting it out on these drills. There's not a way to singulate an individual seed and us to be able to really effectively count. We want, you know, 400,000 seeds per acre. We can't do that. With our guys that are planting with drills, we can do that, because as compared to these kind of rolling mechanisms we have here, growers that plant with our planters can actually say, I want this to rotate so many times, and I'm going to have 1 seed here, 1 seed here, 1 seed here. So if you are working with a drill, 15-inch or 30-inch drill row spacing, somewhere in between there, we can kind of singulate. It helps us on these planters actually get a lot more singulated 1 canola seed in an area, and we can actually get a lot more precise with something like a planter or our more advanced air seeders as well. We can really get good singulation. Our guys that are using the box drill, we kind of got to do the best we possibly can. It's not going to be as good as here, but we're still getting pretty good canola in the ground. The one thing that I hear stories all the time is I put a bag of seed in the drill, and I got about half my acres, I thought. That's going to be really bad for us. So make sure that we're doing all the things right out here before we get into the field, because like I said, canola is only a month long for planting. Our actual best planting is about 10 days long, so there's not a lot of room for error there. So we have to make sure that we're getting everything right before we get into the field. That way when we actually get into the field, we can plant and move on and kind of let that canola get off and running.
And Josh, you actually have some tools out there to help with the calibration of this.
Yeah, we have an app that's available in your iOS and your Android devices. That all we're actually asking is it's a fill in the blank, and so it prompts you to tell you exactly what blanks you need to fill in, and it's going to be things as simple as, you know, how wide is your drill, what's your row spacing on your planting units, what's the radius of your drive wheel. That way, and then what you do is you rotate it your certain amount of revelations, you catch your seed, and then you put your seed, how much seed you actually caught in there, and you hit enter, and it tells you how many pounds per acre, how many seeds per acre you're doing on average. So it's a great tool to kind of speed through some of those math processes when we're actually calibrating. And so if we're actually getting out here, it's a good thing to have on your phone to kind of help with that calibration.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Josh. And for more information on that app and other tools available to help calibrate your canola planter, go to our website, sunup.okstate.edu.